Issue 55. We start out with Antoine struggling to keep up with Sonic as he's running while carrying Sally, and I know for a fact that he's messing with him because he's gotta be not running at full speed, or Antoine wouldn't be as close to him as he is. So he's intentionally running just a teensy bit too fast just as a prank. But this is more of a playful messing around with him thing than outright bullying like much earlier in the comic, so I won't hold this against him. Also, Antoine says, "The pace, she is killing me," and that makes perfect sense, as both of the French words for pace in this context, allure and vitesse, are feminine words. So that makes sense when we do. The reason they're out here is to investigate the egg bots that were released recently somehow. Sally actually sort of joins in on the fun in that, even though she nags at him for outrunning Antoine, she's still giggling and stuff. And all of this is how she's always tended to act when it comes to Sonic messing out with Antoine. But here it's put in a different light because it shows some actually good chemistry between them while they're dating for once. Sonic stops and hides when he sees some egg bots with a giant drill machine, rather than simply spin dashing through all of them at the speed of sound in the blink of an eye, like would be characteristic of him. And right after he says he's not the cautious type too. Of course, Antoine brings the predictable humor by loudly talking as he catches up with him, oblivious to the situation at hand. At least he's complimenting Sonic for once, that's sweet. Those egg bots must have terrible hearing if they didn't immediately get alerted to their presence from that. And you'd think they'd be built with better hearing. Sally says that Nicole picked up an energy signature from their dig site. This at least is consistent with previous technology shown in the comic, as Rotor's got technology that picks up energy signatures of Chaos Emeralds and stuff in previous issues. But still, it is pretty convenient that she can do this. Then Sally says that apparently there's a strong energy signature from a second origin point, and the thing in front of her looks more like a crypt than a generator. It annoys me how Sonic is being insulted for normally being the type to rush into danger, because in this particular region, one, if he's the type to rush into danger, then he should have destroyed those egg bots right away, and two, I really don't see why Sonic shouldn't just effortlessly spin dash through all the egg bots instead of hiding. So Antoine is coming off as the one who's wrong here. I mean, it's not like they're giant super bots or anything. Antoine saying "the" chicken makes sense too, as for what I know about French, they always have a definite or indefinite article at all times. Except in some cases, like after certain prepositions. I'm still learning about that. So he's saying "the" chicken because it's referring to like a specific type of metaphorical chicken, rather than like a chicken that's right there in front of you. Sonic's response to him that he hates it when hit with logic is obviously just him joking around and being a little self-deprecating with himself, admitting that he's right with humor to make it more easy on him, which I kinda like. Meanwhile, Sally talks about how she managed to crack the sensor lock, I'm guessing with Nicole's bullshit powers, and she proceeds to open the door and immediately shows concern over a person being trapped in there. He's a monkey Mobian who's been trapped in the crypt for over 10 years, but is in perfect health, which is given the flimsy justification that Robotnik built him well, making him the most powerful cyborg on the planet, despite not outwardly looking like it. Okay, so is he enough of a cyborg that he doesn't have to eat or sleep or get rid of waste for 10 years, and won't get serious psychological damage from 10 years of solitary confinement? It's not explained that he was in a stasis tube. Monkey Khan, a name I can't take seriously because Khan is associated with a funny meme where his name is screamed out melodramatically every time, says that once Eggman realized he was too strong to be controlled, he locked him away for good instead of having him held down and shot like what would have made sense. Though I guess he was too strong for even that, but he obviously was being held down or he wouldn't have been able to be sent into the crypt to begin with. So if you could have someone put him in a crypt, you could have had someone just kill him. Sally thinks she might have made a mistake for saving him right away, even though there's no real reason for her to be so untrusting of a Mobian just because they're a cyborg that Eggman tried to control. What would Bunny say in this situation? Yeah, that's a good point actually. Where the hell is she? This is not a good story for her to take a sick day, because I think she could relate to him a little. Not too much, since he's not outwardly a cyborg though, which I think is the whole reason behind her angst, that people can see she's a cyborg and treat her differently. But still. Meanwhile, Snively calls his egg boss from prison, who we got in contact with somehow, and is told that the atom drill has successfully penetrated the outer crust and found a larger than normal ring. It's never really explained why it's larger than normal. I guess it has more energy for no reason. You know, Sonic, if you had just spin dashed through all these robots immediately instead of Antoine and Sally being bad influences compelling you to stop, this never would have happened. I don't see how these guys are such big threats that he could have taken them. And no, Antoine, it doesn't matter how many of them there are. Not when Sonic can spin dash at the speed of sound. he would defeat all of them in the blink of an eye. Snively complains that what he really wanted was for them to find Ixis Naugus' power signature. Wait, what? How was he able to contact the Eggbots from prison, a place where they confiscate the prisoner's stuff without having already made a deal with Ixis in there? So he's looking for him for the first time? The ring then rises on its own while Khan is boasting about how he's so awesome that he holds sway over all manners of flora. Odd since I'm not seeing him control plant life, which would have been cool. Then by either sheer coincidence or him attracting it magically because he's so much magical already, the ring falls onto his hair to serve as a cool crown, being nice enough to stay solid instead of turning into energy and being absorbed into his aura like rings normally do when they hit a person. This cool ring crown heightens his senses, and he feels full of energy again after decades of inactivity. Even though he said, after decades of inactivity. How does he know how long it's been in there exactly? Is he keeping track of the days in that prison? He then proves that Sally was right about not trusting him on a whim, by talking like a stereotypical villain wanting wrath from the world for seemingly no reason. I could understand wanting revenge on Eggman, or at the very least they could have explained that solitary confinement for that long is the cause of his unstable behavior, but instead he's a villain for no reason. The Egg Robots spot him flying on a thundercloud, a method of flight I really like by the way, and start shooting lasers at him, though I'm not sure how they knew he had the power ring from that high up in the sky. Khan talks down to the Egg Robots in a cocky way that just highlights how weird it is that Sonic didn't do that. Though again, Antoine and Sally probably influenced them. And he destroys the Atom Drill as I guess a display of his power and nothing else. Sonic is annoyed and jealous of Khan for being a show-off, and this could be understandable considering Khan was acting like an arrogant villain earlier, as normally Sonic would just be impressed. After Sonic tries to fight Khan gets infatuated with Sally just as seeing her, making me wonder why this love at first sight didn't happen the minute Sally opened the door and freed him. He then repays her for standing up for him by kidnapping her because he's been alone without a girl for far too long. So I guess he needs to be a little girl crazy. I'd say that's a relatable character trait a lot of people have, and his action makes sense but is still really selfish and villainous. I like that Sally says she's not in the market for a boyfriend, rather than being like with the giant gorilla robot who kidnapped her where she told him she had a boyfriend and risked getting Sonic in danger. Instead, she doesn't tell him at all. The annoying thing is that once again Sonic is insulted, and this time Antoine actually blames him for what happened. Even though, one, Sally was the one who let him free in the first place, so I guess it's a bit of a creator's pet moment where she's not being called out on it. Although I guess it would be kind of a dick move to do that since she's just been kidnapped. But still, Sonic has been given the full blame for this, even though he was just trying to fight an obvious villain who said he was going to make Mobius quiver in fear. There's no diplomacy for that. Also, Antoine says that Sonic can't seem to get along with anybody. Is this really true? I thought it was only villains and Antoine who's a jerk too. I mean, I guess I haven't seen him interact with regular people much, like civilians. But he's nice to his friends. I'm guessing Antoine's just speaking from his own narrow perspective here, thinking that it's everyone he doesn't get along with. Sonic then tries to trivialize Antoine's insult in his own playful way by calling his catching Egg Robos in a tornado diplomacy. And of course, while Sonic easily defeats the Egg Robos, proving that he really should have just rushed ahead earlier, Antoine isn't allowed to be useful by fighting well, because it just so happens that his sword can't slice through the robots. So why does he even bother with that useless weapon then? Sure, it belongs to his father, I guess, but so does his jacket. He doesn't use that to fight robots. And he doesn't really get power rings very often. I only saw him get one once. So why would he hold on to a weapon that he needs a power ring to slice through robots with? Then he warns Sonic that he should watch his step holding his shoulder, as Sonic almost fell into a pit. I get it, Sonic's reckless. But the whole reason he didn't fight the Egg Robots before Ring could even fall on Khan was because he wasn't reckless. Sally proves she's braver and spunkier than Princess Elise, or Princess Peach, by personally insulting her kidnapper, saying that if he wasn't so focused on satisfying his own ego, he could be a true hero. Good thing he doesn't lash out at her for it, which he didn't know for sure. Then Sonic uses Antoine's sword to break some flimsy ground beneath an Eggbot's feet and make it fall down a cliff, and somehow doesn't immediately fly back out of it using the jetpack it's got built into his back. Antoine points out that this is the first time him and Sonic have worked together like this in a fight. That's true, and Antoine was useless, which really goes to show you how useless he's been so far. I mean, I guess Sonic just used his sword, but he could have had that sword with him. Antoine himself didn't do anything. And then Sonic and Antoine get cornered at the edge of the cliff by egg robos, and Sonic helplessly hopes for a rescue from these robots that you could kill in one hit in Sky Sanctuary Zone instead of immediately spin dashing through all of them effortlessly. Talk about artificial tension. As expected, he gets rescued, with Khan striking the robots with lightning as an apology to Sonic, because through some miracle, Sally's insult actually managed to get through to him. It makes him be a true hero with a drop of a hat, even though he wanted to wreak havoc on the world. You know, compare that to Amy in SE2 convincing Shadow to be good. Even then, she had the help of making a whole big speech about it, and reminding him of what Maria wanted. So I suppose this is another creator's pet moment for Sally, converting a crazed villain with much less of an actual excuse with much less effort than Amy. Snidely complains that this was the last batch of egg robots that he had destroyed, and Khan, finally no longer referring to himself in the third person because that was really out of place and stupid and distracting, says to Sonic that you and I are quite similar, and Sonic and him make up because they should have been buddies from the start. And then Khan flies off, magically cured of his inexplicable wrath against the world. There was a backup story though, that I had to go on my way to find. It shows firsthand some innocent Robian being accused by a racist mob because he was found in Eggman's lab snooping around. Then the mob complains about some really bright light caused by Uncle Chuck using some flash pellets as a distraction. Good thing he happened to have those on hand for no reason. Predictably, the mob only gets even more riled up because it's a Robian defending another one. Also, this is the first coining of the term Robian, and ironically, that's an insult. So it's amazing that the Robians themselves end up referring to themselves by it. The Turkey Robian explains that she, was only in the lab as a dare from her friends. Well, her friends were dicks then. They should have known better. Then one of the Mobians says something really insensitive that it wasn't so long ago that Robotniks had you losers like puppets on a string. It's a really horrible thing to say to someone who used to be brainwashed by an insane dictator that everyone hates, especially when Mobians used to live in fear of that happening to them. You'd think they'd have sympathy for the people caught in that situation instead of calling them losers and puppets, demeaning them for something that wasn't even their fault. I mean, that's their own friends and family that used to be roboticized. It really shows how superficial people can be. I guarantee you that if the robots looked exactly like Mobians, none of this would be happening. The mob brings the problem before King Acorn, who is out of bed and facing the civilians in his crystal form. So if he could just walk out of bed like that, why is he so sick and he needed rest earlier if he wasn't rendered unable to walk and stuff and being partially made of crystal? Why is it inconveniencing him so much? Robians are made of metal and they walk around just fine. More importantly, I guess the king forgot all about their decision to keep King Acorn a secret until his crystallization was cured. Secret's out now! Unfortunately, the king immediately has a dick move by deciding that all the Robians will be dismantled for treason, despite doing absolutely nothing to deserve it. Chuck stands up to him. You can't just make up a law on the spot and then pass sentence? You're talking to an absolute monarch genius. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. That's the whole problem with them in the first place. And then Chuck gets stood up to, as the king calls him out on how it was his fault Eggman's roboticizer was invented in the first place. I can understand him acting out against him for this, but all Robians? After Jeffrey gets slapped for timidly trying to reason with the king, something I really feel sorry for him for. The king passes out after throwing a tantrum from his order not being carried out right away, and Knuckles calls his friends to the floating island because he needs their help. The story then ends with Sonic making a relatable quip because he had just gotten home from dealing with some egg robos, only to be immediately thrown into some more action again. The first story was written by Frank Strom, and it's marked with early installment weirdness regarding Monkey Khan, because he's such a different character from when Ian Flynn got a hold of him, that I have a hard time forgiving this iteration of the character because he feels like a completely different person. It's not just that he's an arrogant, inexplicably destructive villain who insists on referring to himself in the third person, but he has a completely different design. Granted, his original design was terrible in comparison, but that's still a retcon and makes it hard for me to reconcile the two of them as the same character. I do think Khan has some cool powers though, flying on a thundercloud, which I guess has some ice hidden under it so he'd have an actual solid surface to ride on, and shooting lightning as well. So he has some weather powers, which is cool. I don't think it was necessary for him to need a ring crown to activate his powers though. Eggman made him a powerful cyborg. The biggest problem with the story Well, aside from Sally convincing him to be a hero extremely easily to the point of being a creator's pet moment, is that Sonic is constantly called reckless and violent, but there's no reason Sonic couldn't have just acted in character and destroyed the egg robots right away. I don't understand why they're being portrayed as so threatening when Sonic could smash them all in the blink of an eye. Why did he need to hide behind the bushes? Why did he need to be saved by Monkey Khan? It felt like the whole source of the tension was a huge plot hole. Not to mention Antoine was arbitrarily denied the chance to be useful in the fight, even though he tries to have you believe that he and Sonic are working together. And Sally has not one but two creators' pet moments because it was her fault that Khan ran wild. Although that would ultimately be a good thing because Khan is a hero, so it was good that he got released. And that he got the ring crown. But still. And the second story by Carl Boulders shows things going from bad to worse for the Robians as the King has a major dick move moment and orders all of them to be dismantled. I get that there's paranoia where people have a hard time believing their free will got restored completely. I have a hard time believing it too, considering how convenient and arbitrary it was that they got their free will restored by the ultimate weapon, which didn't even have to hit them. The problem is it should have been obvious the fact that the Robians aren't continuing to do the menial tasks they're forced to by Eggman, that they have their free will back. That they're practically regular people now. So the only explanation I could think of is that the King and the mob think they have only partial free will, just enough awareness to act like they have it, but are still loyal to Eggman. But how would they know? How would they think to do that without Eggman telling them to? I understand the paranoia of the people who look like robots, but they're still amazingly heartless and unsympathetic to people they should have a lot more pity for, the King especially. So as you can guess, the story wasn't exactly fun to read, and the previous story was frustrating too because of the plot holes. As it's made obvious by Knuckles calling his friends to Angel Island, we're moving back onto the Knuckles comic for a few issues.